Welcome to the Catch Moby Strategic Sales Podcast, the best advice you're going to get on closing large strategic B2B customers. I'm your host, Christopher Windisch, a 30-year veteran of B2B sales and marketing, and I'm going to share my sales and marketing journey, and I'll interview other industry leaders to give you practical advice you can actually use to start closing bigger deals. Welcome to another episode of the Catch Moby Strategic Sales Podcast. Today, I think I have a really great episode for you. It's talking about one of my favorite subjects, which is relationships. But no, this is not a dating podcast, so sorry if you tuned in for self-help on personal relationships, but large B2B sales can actually sometimes feel like dating. I mean, think about it. The relationships have ups and downs, and ultimately, you want your customer to trust you and to make a commitment. So it's actually a pretty good analogy. But for all the lip service that people give relationships in the sales cycle, there's actually very little time spent on teaching the process of how to measure or manage it. I mean, I guess it's just assumed that every salesperson out there is a master of psychology and a master of relationship building, right? I mean, that just comes as part of the job. But I think it's actually one of the most crucial and even most difficult skills to master. And instead, they kind of teach you focus on qualifying and understanding customer pain points and identifying budget, right? These are all the steps of all these sales methodologies, which I think are pretty straightforward, but it's building those relationships which can be difficult. Now we can go back to the beginning, back when Dale Carnegie was giving all of these lectures, and he wrote a book in 1912 called How to Win Friends and Influence People. I'm sure you've heard of it. And that had great advice, such as be genuinely interested in your customer, smile, right? Great sales advice that stands the test of time. And also the sound of that person's name is the sweetest sound to them, which pretty applicable today. But if we fast forward to the 60s, that's when you have my hero, David Sandler, right? He saw several problems of the day with the sales process. And I don't know, I guess this could be aluminum siding or vacuum cleaners, whatever they were kind of selling in the day. But he saw problems with 1, wasting time on inappropriate prospects, right? 2, wasting time with free advice. And 3, getting a premature no or a slow yes. I mean, I'm sorry, is this 1967 or is this 2024? I mean, wasting time on inappropriate prospects, his advice, always be qualifying the sale, especially with large strategic accounts. That's so critical today. You don't want to spend 6 months with a customer only to find out he's not the right fit. Always be qualifying. You also don't want to spend 6 months giving away free advice. So really, really critical advice for today. He also came up with a great term that I love, which is trusted authority. It's kind of similar to what we say today, like trusted advisor, but I think that's a little bit weaker or watered down. I really like trusted authority because it kind of brings in that notion of credibility. But hey, just want to take a second to say, please subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss an episode. And also you can head over to our website, catchmoby.com, where you can join our email list for exclusive insights into closing these large deals that you're not going to get anywhere else. We even have a free ebook that I wrote that goes into great detail on building these customer relationships and turning them into revenue. So now let's get started with why relationships are important. Now, I know this is obvious, but we're going to be digging into some deep psychology here. And anybody that knows me, and I know we've only had 2 podcast episodes so far, but anybody who knows me knows I love psychology. And more specifically, I love the caveman brain. So we're going to talk about that. But first, let's hit you with statistics, because as people in sales or marketing, we love statistics. Forbes reported 86% of customers that have an emotional connection with a brand are likely to continue the business relationship. Imagine that, 86%. So if you build that connection, that emotional relationship, you're almost guaranteed to continue that relationship. But now let's go to the fun stuff. Let's go to the caveman brain. With cavemen, relationships were critical to survival. I mean, think about it, right? You got a Tyrannosaurus Rex. You want to go it alone? Or do you want to have a bunch of your buddies with, sticks and spears, whatever they had back then, to help kill that Tyrannosaurus Rex? Even if you have any new threat you're facing, like, hey, there's a waterfall. I've never seen that before. Like, how do I cross it or how do I navigate this? Great to have friends in a relationship you can talk to that can kind of give you their experiences and their advice. And actually, your brain, scientifically proven, your brain rewards you with a cocktail of hormones that are going to reduce stress, elevate your mood, and genuinely make you happier when you start building those relationships. So more scientific fact that You really want to build that genuine relationship with your customer. Also, it's been proven that the motives of a speaker are going to change when you're talking with a stranger versus someone you have a relationship with, which makes common sense. But you can even test this theory out with your customers, right? When you start a relationship with them, you can see they're going to be very guarded. And usually it's all unicorns and rainbows. Everything we're doing is perfect, right? Our revenue's right on track. We're killing it. It's kind of the kumbaya story. As you get to know your customer and kind of build that relationship and you break those barriers down, it's proven that once you have that relationship, they're going to speak to you differently, right? And the reason is because A, they know you're not disinterested because you've spent so much time investment with them. And B, you're less likely to judge them if you have a relationship. That's what science shows. So they're going to be more likely to relate to you what's actually going on. Hey, Joe, can you help me? We've missed our sales quota for 2 quarters straight, and I really got to get things back on track, or whatever they're trying to achieve. So it's amazing. You're going to see as that relationship builds, the guard comes down, and you're going to get deeper and deeper insights into your customer. But it's important to note that really it's quality over quantity. Just spending time with a prospect or a customer doesn't mean you're building a bond or a relationship. Now, here's a quick example. I was in a strategy and innovation group at AT&T. I just started, and I was covering Disney. Now, I was at a conference with my VP and the executives, and they were meeting with Disney executives. And I found myself at dinner sitting next to one of the key executives that we were trying to sell to. Now, again, I was brand new. I didn't really even understand kind of what we were selling, the positioning that had been going on for months. But I just went into natural kind of salesy mode, as you do. Sitting in this dinner next to the executive, I was kind of sharing personal stories with him, trying to get his kind of take, trying to get him to break down his barriers. I was throwing some kind of innovative ideas about Disney, saying how excited I was to work with them, and just generally trying to kind of build a bond and relationship of trust, hey, over a dinner. Now, to my surprise, the very next day, the VP called me and said, hey, this meeting we had planned with the executive for months? The executive actually mentioned you by name, and he wanted you to come because he really, he valued the conversation you had. He valued the ideas you were throwing out there, and he trusts you to be at the table. So that's just an example that it really isn't time-based. It's more quality-based in building that relationship. And once you do, those customers are going to feel more comfortable having you in the room. And I was shocked that, hey, I'm invited to this meeting has been planned for months, and this exec mentioned me by name and wanted me to kind of sit down at the table. So now you can see why building that relationship is so important. I think it's key right now to dive into the stages of building that relationship. So we're going to give you a quick little guide or process, the Catch Moby process. Now, I don't like to say methodology. Sometimes I'll slip up and I'll say methodology because I've been so conditioned over my career to say that. But I think methodology sometimes really just lock you into this step-by-step blueprint. And they have these, ideas and motives in there that are so locked in, where I think you have to make these processes or methodologies work for you, right? It's whatever helps you in your process. It really should just be a tool to kind of help guide you or suggest to you, how you can make a better sales cycle. But our process is called SALT. That kind of ties into our catching whales and large strategic accounts, and our kind of whale theme. So if you think of salt and think of the ocean, that's our process. So let's see what it stands for. Now, the S in SALT stands for see value, right? The first thing you need to do when you engage a customer, and this could be an email, it could be a phone call, it could be social, face-to-face, however you choose to get to this customer, you need to show them value. Now, I didn't say how your product or service provides value, right? You need to show them how you show value in them meeting with you, right? How you personally show value. Now, let's look at the distinction. I'm going to give you a quick example. Let's say this is your pitch. Hey, Mr. CFO, our solution can reduce your operational expenses by 20%. Would you like to see how? That's someone showing how their product or service is going to provide value. Now, imagine it's, hey, Mr. CFO, I can show you, right? Me personally, I can show you how our product reduces that operational expense by 20%. I can also share with you how other CFOs are using our solution. And if it's necessary in the future or even valuable, I can arrange a quick call with another CFO so you can kind of share notes with them, and they can share with you the story of how this solution provided them benefits. Now, if you look at those two different strategies, one shows a quick hit of how a solution provides value. The other says, I'm going to be a valuable resource going forward because I can give you what you need to get the information you need to build a relationship with me and eventually buy a solution. And I think the second is much more valuable because you're positioning yourself as a valuable resource, because at the end of the day, we have an old sales adage, right? What is the goal of any meeting? It's to get another meeting, right? And to get another meeting, I think you have to show your own personal worth and show that you personally are valuable to that executive. Now, research has shown time and time again that the perceived value of something is more influential than its actual cost, right? Perceived value. So how do you show value? You have to show perceived value, right? Not, hey, Mr. CFO, my time's worth $500 an hour. I'm giving you a free hour. It's the perceived value. So this should be obvious, right? Cost is not really what's important. It's value, and it's value that's tied to them. In our last episode on 5 reasons why you can't close a large deal, love that title, we pointed to the statistic that 80% of salespeople are unprepared for their sales calls. And part of not being prepared is understanding what resonates as value to your customer. So I'm going to tell you another great story. This is going to kind of make you, it made me cringe when I was in person, but it's going to make you cringe. It's just another story of watching another salesperson just crash and burn, and just the awkwardness you get in that room. And I know you've been in that situation, and maybe it's been with you. I've had it with myself, but maybe you've been kind of this outer body experience watching yourself or watching a third person do it. But I had a large account that I was working on. I kind of brought in an overlay salesperson, and the account, we're not going to name any names, Toshiba, but Toshiba's a large technology company, and they have many different divisions. Now, when you first think of Toshiba, what do you think of? Right? I mean, you may think of office equipment and copiers and printers or, any of that. But the division we actually talked to was producing GPS satellite technology for remotely controlling combines and farm equipment, right? So this was almost an agriculture group. So this sales over rep, I guess not doing his homework, came in and, started pitching. And the value he was tying to was a high-tech company, standard high-tech presentation, computers, copiers, et cetera, not knowing that this specific business unit really saw themselves as part of agriculture technology. And, sometimes customers are nice enough to sit through presentations and they don't really meet the mark. They're not 100% relevant, but not these guys, right? Some customers actually get offended. And they ask questions like that just make you cringe. Like, do you even know what we do? Do you know who our customers are? I mean, when you get those kind of customer questions, you just kind of cringe. And the sales rep, unfortunately, was like a deer in headlights. And I had to kind of bail him out and tie it back to, what was relevant to him. But those customers saw absolutely no value in that rep. Now, they knew he was from my company. I showed value. My company showed value. But that specific rep, they're questioning, why are you here, right? Even if we believe in your solution, from your interaction today, why are you here? We see no value. And I can go into countless stories where I've built value with a customer and I've brought my manager in or a VP or an executive, and the customer was like, don't ever bring them back here again. They provide zero value. So you can see when you're building this large strategic relationship, it's about the value you're going to bring, not so much your solution or your product. Now let's move ahead to number 2. Number 2 in SALT, if you're paying attention, is the A, and the A in SALT stands for achieve value. So it's great your customer sees value. You sound great. You're going to bring me a lot of value. We're going to have a great relationship. But you talk about all this value you're going to bring to my organization. How do I actually know I'm going to achieve this value, right? How do I know I'm going to achieve it? You talk about reducing operational expenses. You talk about increasing revenue, market share. I believe somehow, you're the person to talk to these topics, but I don't know if the actual solution you're going to bring me is going to achieve this. So this is how the customer's brain works. They see the value that you're talking about, and the value relates to them and is valuable. But right away, the next question is, how are you going to achieve it, right? And that's a learned value that, again, goes back to the days of the cavemen. They had a lot to be fearful of. Whenever they received advice, whenever they were building a relationship, they were always skeptical of achieving that value or executing on what somebody was telling them to. So, I guess the moral of the story is if you can sell to a caveman, you can sell anybody because they are the most skeptical in history. But you need to be focused on showing your customer 2 things: that they can, in fact, achieve this value and that you are the one to help them achieve that value, right? You painted a pretty picture, but can I actually achieve the value? And you are the actual person that's going to help me do it. So, achieving value, this always is tough because it requires change. And hey, you want to go back to the caveman? Maybe you do, maybe you don't. But again, love that caveman brain because it breaks it down so fundamentally. The brain is resistant to change, right? People are resistant to change. Back in the caveman days, they weren't eating a lot, so the body had to conserve energy. The brain knew that if I have to change, if I'm going to learn and grow, if I'm going to learn something, that requires energy. So I'd rather shut my brain down and do things status quo as they are today and not change because you're going to require energy. And I don't have a lot of energy. And that kind of is fundamental in our brains today. Customers are resistant to change, right? Unless it's going to bring a big value to them. So one way to do this is to paint a picture, right? And this is going to do two things. It's going to help the customer start to realize and internalize what the future could look like, right? They start to get the warm and fuzzies. You're there painting a picture. Here's all the future benefits. They actually start to visualize it in their brain. They internalize it and they get those warm and fuzzies. Then just as quickly as all their fears and doubts surface, almost like this involuntary visceral reaction, and it shakes them out of this visual picture, right? Because the fear and doubts come back to the surface. And customers most times can't hide these even if they want to. So you're painting this picture like, oh, imagine your organization growing. You said in your 10K you're going to expand into China. Now you're growing that region. Now you've got a global enterprise. And then bam, customer comes right back to you with an objection. There's no way we can scale that fast. There's no way it can ramp up. I don't have the resources, which is great because you get this visceral reaction and all of these objections come out. You get insight into the customer's objections and into their playbook, which is fantastic, right? This visual reaction. Now you know how you can start kind of building your pitch and how you build that relationship, the challenges that you need to address and you need to overcome. And this is a great creative exercise to do with your customer, right? And sometimes they can't even stop if they wanted to, getting out these visceral reactions. And again, it just kind of writes a playbook for you how to overcome these objections and what you need to build this kind of blissful picture. And, what's also really important is to kind of build the bridge, right? And build a connection of how they're going to get to this value that you've been painting. So you're talking about, you're going to launch your product in Asia 6 months earlier because we streamlined your logistics. What would that mean for revenue? That's going to increase your revenue. And it's also going to increase your market share against your competition, right? It's going to take market share away from your competition. And because of that, because you're quicker to market, you're going to probably blow out your quarterly objectives. And also, we know at blowing out your objectives, you were talking to me about you're stressed because, you're probably going to have to work through the holidays. Now you can enjoy the holidays more and spend time with your family. I mean, look at that. Let's unpack that bridge that you just built. We're talking about something, near and dear to their heart, which is spending more time with your family. How did you get there from streamlining logistics? Well, I just built a bridge. And I built those connections in your brain in painting a picture from logistics to revenue to market share to your personal quota, which is your personal objective. Bam. Now you're the holidays spending more time with your family. This is a great way to storytell and really build a bridge of how I'm going to help you achieve not only the value of revenue, but value of spending time with your family, going back to that emotional connection you're building in the relationship, which Forbes said is so critical to keeping that business relationship critical. So when in doubt, build that bridge and really paint that picture of the value. And now that you've shown them, in fact, you can achieve that benefit, right? Which could be revenue, operational expenses, spending time with their family, or that ski vacation in Aspen, whatever it is. There's still a lingering doubt that you're the right partner to make that happen. Right? They just visualize the picture. They got the warm and fuzzies. Great. I'm going to be skiing in Aspen. But hey, how are you the person to really help me build those bridges and build that journey? And now is an important point to build your credibility and to gauge where the customer sees the credibility, right? It could be that the customer says, guarantee, I already know. I know of your reputation. I know your company. I know of the customer references. Hey, you're there. Right? I trust you. I've got credibility in you. Or it could be the other opposite end of the spectrum where he's saying, you have zero credibility. I don't know you've ever done this. I don't even know you work in my vertical. So yeah, you painted a great picture, but how would I know you're the right person to bring me there? Right? So you have to gauge that credibility with your customer because this could be a green check mark on your account plan, or this could be a huge challenge that you have to overcome. So Again, this is a great way to gauge that credibility when you've explained these benefits to your customer. And this could set forward a strategy of now I've got to focus on building that credibility. Could be customer reference calls, could be showing how we work in this industry, could be showing I've done this before, could be talking more industry language so he gets more comfortable with me. Now you've got your kind of plan mapped out. Now, number 3, and probably the most controversial, is the L in SALT. That L is for listen. And as soon as you hear the word listen, it's not what you think, right? And I know this is pounded in our brains in sales methodologies. Listen to your customer, listen to your customer. You should have been listening to your customer all along. I'm sorry, that's not what listen means. Listen actually means the reverse. Listen means when your customer starts to listen to you, right? I know there's a lot of emphasis on listen to your customer, but trust me, your customer is not looking to be interviewed or have a therapy session. So your customer does not enjoy being, pelted with 1,000 questions. There comes the time when during that, yes, there is some listening, there is some probing questions, there is some empathetic questions to get your customer's emotions and feeling and pain points, etc. But also you need to contribute to the conversation, right? You need to be, remember Sandler is talking about a trusted authority. You're never going to position yourself as an authority or as a position of trust if you're not contributing to the conversation and showing off what you know, showing that you've heard what the customer said, you've processed it, and you've tied it back to a value or a benefit for them. So this listen, again, it can be subtle, but it is, I think, extremely important. In the 30 years I've been doing it, this is the one stage that's shocked me that no one's been talking about, right? And this is when the customer actually turns around and starts to listen to you. You're no longer a vendor. You're no longer pitching. Remember that relationship where they're no longer talking to a stranger. They're opening up. They're giving you insights. And let me tell you a quick story to illustrate. So I had been working with a customer and going through the entire sales cycle and understanding about their business and mapping it to what we do and showing them, hey, I'm the guy to help you navigate. I'm again an executive so you can build a relationship. So you've got executive in your pocket. I'm going to build technical resources so you have a relationship. I'm going to show you our customer reference calls so they can kind of give you some innovative ways to. I built all this relationship. And there came a time in a meeting, which I wasn't even expecting, right? Wasn't mentioned in the agenda, but just one of our meetings where he said, you know what? I'm going to share with you our vision map for the year, right? This is our company document. It's confidential, but I'm going to share our vision map with you. And I want you to point to any of the initiatives we have going on, any of the benefits for the year. I want you to point to anything else you can help us with that we can roll up together in our relationship. And it was at that exact point I thought, my first thought was, oh my God, take a screenshot. I don't know if that's right or not, but hey, I'm going to tell you like it is on the podcast. It was take a screenshot. But my second thought was, I can't believe, I feel like I'm a partner, I'm an employee, and I'm sitting at the table and we're starting to collaborate on this huge vision map for the year of how we can partner together. And I thought, like, this is real commitment. This is definitely a change in our relationship, right? And this shows, I've made the investment to build a relationship with my customer, and they were generally interested, in my opinion, in how I was going to help them. They were starting to trust me and trust my vision. They were not going to open that vision map and just say, oh, this is a vendor. This vendor is going to pick 5 things and try to sell me more software. No. They truly thought I was providing enough kind of thought leadership that even if it wasn't software I was selling them, because I've worked with so many customers in their industry, I could give them some thought leadership. I can give them some innovative ideas that would help them stand out at the next executive meeting, even if it wasn't tied to me selling software. That is a huge turn in your relationship and one you should be working for, right? It shows that you're earning yourself a seat at the big boy table, right? It's just that critical change in the relationship to helping them solve their problems, even if it means not buying what you're selling, but just tapping into your thought leadership. Now, Gartner kind of calls this sense making, right? Gartner says this is the evolution of your sales process. When you turn your chair around and come to the other side of the table and you're helping your customer make sense of everything in the market and all the solutions that are out there. Again, critical change in your relationship. And it's also a critical point not to abuse this stage, not to be the salesperson to say, oh my God, Now I can sell you 5 more things. And I'm just going to tie each of the initiatives on your vision map to one of my products. That is the absolute wrong thing to do. And you're going to get kicked back to the other side of the table and forever be branded a vendor. There may be chances to upsell more and increase your relationship, but there may be chances to say, hey, this is a critical initiative I saw. You know what? One of our other customers talked about this. I'd love to set up a call to show you how they built this innovative 5-step process to tackle this. I mean, that's showing real thought leadership and real value personally to your customer. And it really is helping you paint this bigger picture of how your commercial relationship is going to benefit them. You're forever going to be a vendor, but also this trusted authority and this thought leadership that they can tap into. And that is 10 times more valuable than your competition who says, we've got some great software for you and it can do these benefits. So let's take that change in relationship to the next step in SALT, which is the T, which is the nirvana of relationships. And it is trust. And trust is the point you need to get to. And just a side note, this is again why I'm kind of against activity forecasting in these large strategic accounts. I'm against forecasting based on activities. Hey, we had a demo. Hey, we had a discovery call. Hey, I gave them pricing. That doesn't talk to the buying relationship. That huge metamorphosis to becoming a trusted authority and then becoming someone that your customer actually trusts, that is how you track the buyer's journey and the buying relationship. So I was reading an article about commitment in relationships, and I came across an awesome phrase for the benefits of that relationship, and it's called commitment safety. Commitment safety, which I thought was an excellent term. If you really think about that long strategic relationship, I'm not buying software again. I always say this. Customers are buying a solution from you that can get them fired, right? Or at least really impact their career. If they're not, then you're not enough of a business impact. And this is not enough of a big deal. But if it's something that's going to impact their career positively or negatively, they're really looking at making a commitment to you and what that commitment means. And they want commitment safety, which is really a trust in your relationship. And I think this is so critical. It's so critical for salespeople to understand that someone is buying into you and buying into the relationship they can build with you and not just your product or service. Such a critical change in mindset that you have to have. This is this huge commitment, again, that can affect their career positively or negatively. So, that's a lot to ask to make this commitment. And if you think about it, an entire company is committing to you, right? It could be they're committing to your support team. It could be committed to your development team to make sure they're developing your product into the future, right? I need to have faith that your development team is developing in alignment with my product goals or product needs. Your procurement needs to be frictionless, right? I can't have an egregious contract. I can't have an egregious legal team cutting this up every time I want to buy something from you. So we're making a commitment to every bit of your organization. And this means that it's not a matter if you're going to hit hard times, right? But it's a matter of how you resolve those hard times. I think every vendor that builds a relationship knows there's going to be issues, right? A new lawyer is going to come in and beat us up over the contract, or procurement's going to have new rules, or product development's going to want to prioritize something over our, product enhancements. There's always going to be challenges. But do I have this feeling about our relationship that you're going to help me resolve that? Right? Do I have executive commitment? If I have support issues, I have product issues. And that's really what that relationship is there. It's there to provide commitment safety when those issues come up. So again, not the fact that issues will never come up. They're always going to come up. But how are we going to resolve those issues? Do we have the commitment safety that we feel confident you're going to resolve that? And again, just a critical change in the mindset. And that's why every step of the way you should be building trust. From the beginning to the end of the sales cycle, did you promise the customer a deliverable? Make sure that no matter how small, that deliverable, you're delivering above and beyond, right? It's on time, it's complete, and it's above and beyond in the value you're providing your customer. That's just giving them a foreshadowing into how they can trust you and how your relationship is going to evolve, in the future when they actually buy something from you. Another big thing, did you promise to go to bat for them with your company? So we get to the negotiation stage. Right? And they say, there's certain IP I want to own, or there's certain product enhancements I want. I want these put on the product roadmap with your product development team. You actually need to go to bat with your company. And it's funny, we had a saying at AT&T, I don't know if I should, release this, but we have a saying with AT&T, if you want to sell to customers, you work in the mid-market. But if you want to sell to AT&T, you work in the up market, right, with the larger customers. Because a lot of time, the customer was bought onto your vision, but AT&T had a hard time in figuring out how they want to change, right, and innovate and deliver that. And so sometimes you need to take that customer and see and show that you're an advocate for your customer and a champion with your own company. Something I kind of call the apocalypse now syndrome, when you become one of the natives and you turn around and start advocating for your customer. That's a huge show of trust and a huge show of the relationship you're trying to build with your customer. So that trust is the absolute nirvana. You know when you've earned that trust with a company, when they start listening to you, right? When you show all that value and how you're going to achieve value, they start listening to you, and now you've actually built trust. Now you know it's just a matter of continuing to earn that trust. And you can go about your campaign, talking to others at the customer, throwing out innovative ideas, partnering with them. Maybe you're going to co-present a white paper at a conference or speak together. There's really all of these partnership ideas on how can I move my business interests forward, and also how can I move my customer's business interests forward together as if we're truly partnering. So those are the 4 stages of the buying relationship that we kind of focus on at Catch Moby. And again, you really need to track the relationship and not the activities. That's how to show value. That's how to build a relationship. And that's how to turn a relationship into revenue, right? Because that's really been the focus of the podcast, is not just build a relationship to sell something or to close a deal, but turn it into ongoing revenue. And the way you do that is you focus on relationship, you focus on reputation, and then revenue comes from that. So I really hope you enjoyed the podcast. I think there's some great points you need to think that can really help broaden your mindset when you're looking through the SALT methodology in tracking your relationships. And that's what I want you to do, is when you're on those sales cycles, and this could be for a CRO, a sales executive, this could be for anyone involved with customer accounts, even from a marketing standpoint. Marketing is critical in understanding where you are in your sales relationship. Are we at the trusted advisor or trusted authority stage, or are we all back at the stage trying to show value? Because every engagement you have with your customer, and again, this could be a microsite that you built for your customer. This could be marketing materials that marketing is helping you put together. This could be a customer executive meeting. Any type of engagement or touch point you have with your customer has to be consistent with your relationship, right? You have much different marketing materials when you're at the trust stage than when you're at the show value stage. Your executive engagement and conversation is going to be much different, and it should be different from the type of meeting, the body language, the agenda that's put together, the language that's used. All of that is different if you're at the achieve value stage than you're at the listen stage. So as someone who's running this deal, or even a CRO who's building out the strategic accounts initiative, this is critical to know that every touch point has to be tuned in to the level of relationship you have with your customer. So again, I really appreciate you taking time to listen to the Catch Moby Strategic Sales Podcast. Please subscribe. Go to our website at catchmoby.com and join our email list. And you can download, again, a free ebook that goes into even more detail. Yes, there's better stories in there. There's lots to talk about psychology and the caveman brain to really get you understanding what you're doing out there with your customers. But just remember, no strategic sale happens without the right relationship. Thanks again, and I'll see you soon.